My name is Joe Gonzalez. I'm a 20th century music historian. I'm currently best known as Pappa Wheelie, the Miami bass historian. The history of Miami largely ties into the history of Miami bass and really all Miami music and Florida overall. Florida, well before it was a state, was really more of an obstacle for shippers. There was coral surrounding all the waters around Florida, so shippers of course would wreck on these. And this is something that pirates and scavengers took advantage of, and it really is indicative of the story overall. One of the most notable pirates to start was Black Caesar, who was actually black. He became a partner of Blackbeard's later, but he's very notable in South Florida. What most people don't know about Black Caesar is there were two. The original Black Caesar, and then 80 years later, an escaped slave came down to what was the Florida territory, which is not a state. And he became the second Black Caesar. And the idea behind pirates is this is a mythical, this is an actuality. Pirates would trap ships and then of course take over their ships, take everything off of it. This is an ancient history. This is just a couple hundred years ago at best. And we're talking about escaped slaves, that certainly means it could be within our grandparents' time or great-grandparents' time. But ultimately what made Florida a state was when Congress voted upon it, and they put a lighthouse there to prevent this, which changed the landscape greatly. But what developed Florida as a state was Henry Flagler, single-handedly. Flagler was known for building the railroad down. Now, this may be boring history to most, but it paints the landscape socially and economically more than anyone could possibly know. Flagler built the railroad down from Jacksonville, which was the southernmost point, first to St. Augustine, which he developed into a retreat for the rich, and then he expanded that further south, initially to West Palm Beach, and then when there was a cold winter at West Palm, he took it to Miami. Now the idea behind Flagler building Miami was it was built on the backs of former slave labor. So if you have the former slaves, black citizens, who technically weren't even citizens, building this, but they're building it for the rich, it's what creates the diaspora. You have the rich, wealthy playground, and you have ultimately the laborers. And the laborers get sent over town to live, which is why the area of town is now known as Overtown. And Overtown later morphed and shifted over to Liberty City. But during the 30s, and I would go back even further, teens, 20s, etc., this was the strict area that was then called Negro Town. Now the issue there is Florida was a promise of paradise. It always promises paradise, but always surrounded by dangerous waters. Now the thing about it is, this was a real estate boom. It was a boom town. It got to the point where people were selling real estate hand over fist with people not even coming to view it. You could sit in Ohio, contact a broker in New York City, purchase a piece of land, and then turn around and sell it one day later for double the price, never having visited it. Now clearly, this is going to create an economic bust. No one can do business like that. You're selling a non-existent product at the end of the day. And in 1929, not only did the stock market crash, as we all know from history, but specifically the Florida land boom crashed independent of itself. All the materials were being shipped on Flagler's railway, and ultimately Flagler couldn't handle all the materials coming in because you got people to feed, so food has to come on that railway. So you have to ship it now through the waters. And there's only one port, and when the port got blocked from a historic ship that was supposed to be used as a hotel, tipped over and blocked everything, that was the end of that. You couldn't get materials in to build, you could only get food in. Then the stock market crashes, Miami dies. All of South Florida development dies. But that's okay, there was enough there. This is when you got to come up with more money. So when the local government starts thinking, what can we do to come up with money, they legalize pari-mutuel gambling. And the moment you legalize pari-mutuel gambling, you got outsiders looking in about, wow, can you get in on this? How can you get on this cashing in on this borderline legal industry? So the mob comes to town, most notably Meyer Lansky, but certainly others. And there's a bit of a sketchy history that's not so easy to research, but we all know that on Miami Beach, which was built by Carl Fisher just by literally dredging up sand and building a land out of nothing, these mobsters and others built their own hotels, luxury hotels, which come into the limelight of Miami's landscape. And this was all, or I shouldn't say all, but certainly partially, if not greatly, mob money. So at the end of the day, you have to question what foundation Miami is built on and what foundation Miami business is built on. And the music industry is a business. Make no mistake about that.